Welcome to Reading International Solidarity Centre. We're often known as RISC. We are a development education centre who have been based in Reading for the last 25 years, working within our local community. We moved to this building in 1996, and it was very important to us that we maximise the use of the space. So we have the World Shop and the Global Cafe here on the ground floor. Upstairs we have conference and meeting rooms. We also have community offices as well as our education team and the roof garden. The World Shop and the Global Cafe are the public face of RISC. People coming to the building are likely to come to either the shop or the cafe first. When they're here, they have the opportunity to either look at an exhibition in the cafe or look at the crafts in the shop. The World Shop is one of the largest fair trade shops in the UK. By buying products in this shop, you're ensuring that there is an element of fairness about the trade between us and other countries. We provide a market for producers who often find it very difficult to get their products to market. By buying and spending money in this shop, you're supporting producers in poorer countries.
Hello, I'm Mary. I maintain the roof garden at RISC here. This is a permaculture forest garden, a particular type of garden that doesn't need very much maintenance. So I just come in a couple of afternoons a week. All the plants on the garden are useful in some way, so they're either edible, medicinal, or can be used for dyes or making furniture or something like that, and most of them have several uses. They also come from all over the world. The RISC is a global development education centre, so the garden has been designed to complement that sort of work. So we have plants from Asia and China and South America, all over the world. And we use the garden as an educational resource. Mostly for teachers. It's not a large enough garden for the children to run around in, but teachers learn a lot about how to incorporate plants and the uses of plants into their curriculum by coming around when they're on training courses. We also get a lot of other visitors who are just interested in how plants are used, how valuable they are, and the many ways for medicinal uses and edible uses that sometimes they haven't even thought about. We grow a lot of unusual plants here, things like a sugar plant that they can use instead of sugar in teas, peppers, medlars, all sorts of things that they may not have seen before. We also have links with our cafe and restaurant downstairs, so we grow chilies and rosemary and various herbs for them, and flowers when we can for the tables. And they bring up their compost and tea bags and things like that and use them so that we can have a recycling going on. We do quite a lot of talking about teaching on sustainability, so how to compost materials, how to use recycled materials in the garden, things like old step ladders which we've used on one of these beds here, and in fact our prime one here is that we've used stone from the Reading Abbey as part of the building stone for the roof garden. It was found in the bottom of the building here. Yeah, we grow quite a few unusual plants. One of those is this ochre here, which has a leaf like a shamrock or a clover, and underneath, at this time of year, you can dig out these little tubers, and you can eat them like potatoes, or you can leave them in the sun and then they go sweet and you can eat them like raisins. They are grown, these are quite small, but they're becoming quite a popular crop now, but most people haven't come across these ones. The fact that the soil on top of the roof means that the rooms below are insulated from the cold. Last winter we did an experiment on the roof, taking the temperature on the surface and below and comparing them with another area, and we found that we're saving 2 degrees of temperature. The warmth from below is being held in the soil, so it's acting really as a very good insulator. As well as insulating again for temperature, it actually acts as sound insulation, because one of the reasons that the garden was put on the roof was that the neighbours were complaining about noise from bands, and so we had to put some insulation in, and the garden soil acts as that, works very well, and the neighbours are no longer complaining.
RISC is involved in lots of areas of global education, and over the last 10 years one of the areas that has really developed, possibly beyond expectation, has been around food, and that's all derived from developing this roof garden, which, although we planned it as an educational tool to complement all the other kind of education work around global themes, we've been really surprised with how it's really taken off, and I think that's because the whole world is in a way kind of caught up with the kind of messages that we've been going on about, particularly in terms of global food security, although, as we'd like to say it, global food sovereignty. So that is the right of peoples, of countries, to good levels of nutrition and access to food. And this develops from RISC's long involvement in fair trade, giving producers in developing countries a reasonable return for their efforts and the ways in which they sustain our lifestyles through food. So this is building on that and just hoping to just reinforce that idea that the planet's resources are finite, food is finite, with increasing global population and changing consumption patterns, so more and more people wanting to eat meat particularly, that the demands on food for the whole planet are increasing. At the same time as, because of climate change, things like water, the key resource, is reducing. So what we've been trying to do with all our food-related work is to raise public awareness about the issue of food security, food sovereignty, and then to give examples of how people can actually make changes to their own lifestyles to be part of the solution rather just contributing to the problem. So we open up the roof garden to the public during the summer, and every year we have at least 400 people who come here and have a look at the sustainable technologies that we've employed here, and just looking at different ways of sustainable growing that people can easily incorporate into their own gardens. So, for example, water harvesting systems, irrigation systems, and then also low maintenance ways of gardening, and the forest garden which we have here on the roof is a prime example of that. And so over the last 3 years we've developed 15 school and community gardens all over Reading, largely in areas of quite high social deprivation. And so the idea is to get parents and their kids learning how to grow together on bits of land in school, or waste bits of land that the council has identified for us. So it's using a wasted resource, and reclaiming that and using it to grow food, to develop new skills, and also to improve the levels of nutrition, access to good fresh organic food that families will have. And this has been really, really successful and is developing over several sites around the town.
We work with teachers here in our centre at RISC, but also with teachers in schools. And when we're training with them, we really encourage them to include their teaching assistants and also school governors and any other non-teaching staff in the school, so that a school can really develop a global citizenship ethos. We introduce global citizenship to the teachers that we work with through two main ways, really, through training and through producing resources for them to use. And the whole idea behind both things is that it's about enabling them to help the children and young people they work with become global citizens who really want to take action for those essential key concepts of global citizenship, for example, human rights, diversity, sustainability, peace and conflict, thinking about interdependence, all of those areas of global citizenship. We hope to be able to support the teachers in delivering to the children and young people they work with the idea being that they'll grow up wanting to take action to bring about change in the world. Apart from working with teachers in schools, we also work a lot with trainee teachers and introduce them to the key concepts of global citizenship, so that from really the beginnings of their career, they're beginning to think about how they can help the young people and children they work with to develop as global citizens as they grow up. We produce a number of teaching resources to support teachers in delivering global citizenship. and these relate to all sorts of global issues, particularly issues like fair trade, for instance. However, more recently we've developed resources that explore how we can measure pupils' attitudes and their knowledge about global issues. And to do this, we've devised some activities that they can use in the classroom to measure what children and young people actually think. And then, following a period of teaching, they might have done topics about particular global issues, the activities can be repeated, and then teachers can see the change that's come about as a result of the work that they've done. One of the resources that relates to this is how do we know it's working, this resource here. And this is becoming popular throughout the UK, but also in other European countries, and is going to form the basis of some new work that we're doing to make it appropriate for teachers across Europe and perhaps in other parts of the world. Most recently, we've produced an online resource bank for teachers to access so that they can use materials there to deliver global citizenship, and particularly to challenge the stereotypes that people so often have about people and places. So on our resource bank, which is part of our website, teachers can find a whole range of photographs from different countries in Africa, Asia, South and Central America, that will really stop pupils in their tracks and get them to think much more critically about fellow human beings in other parts of the world. Through our resource bank, they can also see our loan service collection and the sort of artefacts that we have that schools can borrow to help them deliver global citizenship effectively. Our loan service includes traditional and contemporary items, and we're always really careful to make sure that schools have a balance of things to borrow, so they're not just presenting other cultures as something exotic and different, but they're looking for the similarities between our lives and the lives of people in other parts of the world. So we have a lot of items made from recycled materials, reclaimed materials, for instance, as well as everyday items, things like banknotes, for example, where a lot of learning can take place through looking at those, different textiles, things that relate to the art curriculum and any other part of the curriculum. Science teachers find it particularly useful to borrow things to help them deliver global citizenship through science, for example.
At Redlands there's lots of opportunities for global citizenship. We have a school of over 50% children from different ethnic backgrounds, and we celebrate Eid, Diwali, Jewish celebrations, Christmas, and we have a community of people around us, parents and governors from lots of different ethnic backgrounds, and we like to celebrate their festivals together. We have a lovely international evening in the last term of school where we have dancing and sharing of food. We have a global arts evening. We also bring citizenship into as many lessons as possible in school, so that can be sustainability or it can be conflict resolution. So even at break times and lunch times we have dinner controllers who are well versed in how to listen to children and help them solve their own problems and listen to each other. I have to work with a lot of parents in the community around Redlands, and I'm very aware that they have had a very different educational experience to their children, and that they are on their own journey of learning, and so we have to work together to try and encourage their children in their maths and their English, their science and all their subjects, at the same time as the parents learning how that's done. So we have a weekly homework club where the parents come along with the children, and the parents are asking questions along with the children, and we can work together and answer the questions and help them to learn as well as the child. So it's an experience for me to be understanding more about their culture, their learning from the past and where they're going with their learning in the future, as well as a journey for them to understand their own child and their learning in the current system in the UK. Being a trustee at RISC and being involved a lot in RISC helps me to continue my journey of developing my own global citizenship. I started by attending courses where I could understand a bit more about my own attitudes and opinions, and about the people around me and how to challenge those. And now I constantly use RISC as a source of resources for my teaching. As part of my ongoing professional development, I've been able to draw on the experiences of Poland, where I was working with lots of different people from different backgrounds, and having to create my own project and drive and work with other people and be motivated to find out more and question more. As well as my trip to Uganda, where for 5 weeks I was working with a community of local people in their school, helping them to develop projects that they wanted to work on. And that whole experience has really helped me to further my own professional development as well as my own personal goals.
Right from the earliest days, RISC has tried to reach new audiences with our local global message through public events. So some of the highlights would include the representative of the Palestinian Liberation Organization coming to talk to us about the plight of Palestinians on the occupied West Bank. He came with sniffer dogs and special branch minders, so that was a real highlight. But a very varied sort of programme of events, some with more serious ones about the World Trade Organization, or looking at corporate tax evasion, which is something which is very topical at the moment. But also on a kind of a more light-hearted theme, we've had Mark Thomas, the comedian, sort of talking about the practices of Coca-Cola and other corporations. And we also have, for a long time, organised a number of festivals. So particularly during February, we have the Fair Trade Fortnight swathe of events in the centre, just to raise awareness about ethical consumerism and what people can do through their own buying power to make a difference to producers all around the world. And then we also have the Reading International Festival, which takes place every year in October. And usually there are about 40 events taking place, organised by the Reading International Forum, which is something which we coordinate. So there are about 80 different organisations around the town with an internationalist sort of interest. So these would range from Amnesty International, the various community organisations such as the Caribbean or the South Asian community organisations, the Hindu temple, and they all run events to just raise awareness about their own activities, and they would range from things like learning how to salsa dance to reading out the various provisions of the UN Charter on human rights. So this is just some of the ways in which we try to reach a different audience. So people who may not be that interested in global economics would nevertheless come along to a comedy slot. Or another way in which we try to reach an audience is through the Global Cafe. And you can see behind me the walls an exhibition about fair trade, how people can make their Christmas a fair trade Christmas and make a difference in that way. And in the cafe we've had a number of events. We have themed feasts, so for example people can come and eat food from a particular country and then hear activists from that country talk about some of the issues which are facing their peoples. And then we also have the famous Tutu's Ethiopian Table, which is the only Ethiopian restaurant outside London. And so people get a chance to eat global as well as drink global. So we have a whole range of fair trade teas and coffees, as well as a selection of organic wines and spirits, and a really good selection of beers from around the world. So if you really want to try some Kenyan Tusker or some Nigerian Guinness, then the Global Cafe is the place for you.
Everything about RISC, in the way in which we're set up, is to promote active global citizenship. RISC was founded in the 1980s by a group of local activists. It was very important for them that they raise the awareness of global development issues. If you'd like to know any more about the way in which we work here at RISC, then have a look at our website www.risc.org.uk.